So with a very quick change of dais, we are ready with the second session, and we have the learned faculty who would be deliberating his lecture upon the use of technology, information technology in bank audits. I think it is the main crux and essence with which a bank audit should be conducted. The information technology is the essence in modern era, how the work can be done more efficiently and effectively with less time and using less of resources, and we can reduce our cost as well when we use the information technology to its best optimum utilization. So we have the eminent faculty with us as Prasad sir. So welcoming you sir to this Ahmedabad branch of ICAI. Thank you sir for accepting our invitation. And I request if members could just gather upon here and occupy the seats ahead so that it could be more of an interactive session. It's just a voluntary gesture from all of you. I request if you could just come forward. That would help sir also to connect with you, eye-to-eye contact, if it's possible for all of you. And in the meantime, I request the coordinator for the session, CS Sanket Shah, to please come forward and take the session ahead and also introduce the learned faculty.
Good morning, all of you. My committee member, Abhinav Malavia, learned faculty, CA, Chartered Accountant, Siv Prasad ji. On behalf of Professional Development Committee and being a coordinator of the session for the pre-lunch session, that is use of technology under the branch audit. We have a very experienced faculty over here in a huge experience, that is in the field of technology. That is any audit. He has developed many founder and mentor of startups, any audit, Skill Up, CollabNet, Tax Research, and other many startups. He has been data scientist of AMBPA, Advanced Debt Management Program on a business analytics of Indian School of Business. He has been the committee member of many institutions like Indirect Tax Committee of FAP, CCI, Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, and many other institutions. He has delivered more than 200 lectures under the topic of various GST and information technologies. He has performed many bank audits and other public sector undertakings of like NTPC, Power Grid, then central statutory audits of Oriental Bank of Commerce, etc. With this huge experience, I am humbled to welcome sir, and the dais is yours. Now take up the sessions ahead. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm really great and feel happy to be invited here and to stand in front of you. The topic of today is really the topic of today. Use of technology. Okay. So there is no single field which is not affected by technology, and it is the case from day one of mankind. Yes or no? So ever since we started our life, ever since the mankind had started, so we are gradually making our life ease. So we invent a lot of things, so right from Stone Age, wheel. So the technology is gearing up a lot, and then it is increasing at a logarithmic progression. Like the amount of the change that is happening in technology is huge. So how many of people sitting here are interested in technology? So really great. Because I keep hearing a lot of chartered accountants saying that I am tech averse. Okay. Like if you make a graph, mostly the seniors, we can say, okay, they may be tech averse. In a sense, the technology, what we mean by technology is system, computers today. Okay. And then there is a little upfront cost. They have to learn a little and then get into it a little. So maybe that thin wheel is preventing, but then if that was broken and into the technology, it will pay a huge dividend. Out of those who are interested in technology, what are the technological tools that you are using the most? Excel, Microsoft Excel. Then How many of you are using ChatGPT? Very few hands. Maybe 10 if I can count proper. Okay. What is GPT standing for? Chat is okay. What is GPT? Can anybody give the full name of GPT? Have you heard the word generative AI? How many of us have heard the word AI, artificial intelligence? All of us. Okay. Then what is generative AI? Gen AI or generative AI? Okay. It's very important for all of us to see what is happening around. Okay. And if we see what is happening around, then it gives us a lot of insight, a lot of thought into the future. Okay. Maybe down the line, less than 5 years, everything of our profession is going to change. It is already changing rapidly. Okay. But there are certain periods of time where the change is very clearly visible, and we are at the cusp of such a moment where the change was huge. Okay. So we should realize this, and of course, lot of seminars happen on use of technology only during the month of March. That too in the area of bank audit. I don't know why. Okay. Well, of course, can we really do anything in 2-3 weeks of time? Now we are on some 15th or 14th of March, 16th of March, and the bank audits are going to start from the first week of April and are going to end by second week of April. Okay. So can we really gear up? And then, of course, we may know that this is going to happen or this is happening around, but is it a sufficient time enough to emulate the technology and put it to action? I doubt. It is not possible. Okay. It will take at least 1 to 2 months of orientation. Okay. So therefore, anyway, there is no bad time for a good thing. Okay. And of course, lot of the things our the students or the first gen people are already good at it. So we have an impression that the technology is not going to affect, the technology can at best do things which are repetitive in nature, but the technology can never take a decision. Yes or no? Can the technology take a decision on its own? Yes or no? So that was a feeling with which we are having a sound sleep all the time. That the technology is not going to touch the subjectivity. The technology is not going to touch the decision making. Maybe it will do the number crunching fast. Okay. Maybe if the things are taking 100 hours to do manually, it will do it in a minute. But ultimately, it is only the number crunching. The decision making is still in the hands of the human beings, and the technology cannot replace the human being, was the thought with which we are all. Okay. But you know the technology where it is today, if you give a 100-page PDF and ask the technology to summarize and give a brief note of it, to study, understand, synthesize, and then in your own words, give a summary of this. The technology is able to do this now. It is no more it is no more a dream, it is no more a future, it is already there in the being. Okay. So the technology is actually getting into the subjective areas, and that is what we call as artificial intelligence. How artificial intelligence works and all, okay. It's good that I am able to see it a little closer because of the course that I did on data science. When I did my data science course, it is really a, what you call, if you think of the future, it is really horrific. Horrific in the sense of the changes that are going to happen. Okay. So how is it able to do? Can anybody, any vague idea as to what is happening behind the screens? How the system is able to read, understand like a human being? How the system is able to convert, like if you give a text which is grammatically incorrect, not so well written, not so well drafted, okay, and ask ChatGPT to write in a way how a senior chartered accountant will write, okay, how an advocate will write, use all legal terminology, use a layman's language, use an executive language, So it is even bringing the flavor of drafting. Not only drafting, it is even bringing the flavor of the drafting. Okay. Now we used to see the technology can at best do the number crunching, but can it write a beautiful reply to a show cause notice? So that was the questions with which we are all so far, thinking that the technology cannot come to these uncharted areas which are exclusive to human intelligence or ingenuity, but now those days are gone. Okay. So therefore we must realize this, and early adapters will definitely have the first mover advantage. They will be ahead of the curve, and that is what the brief of today's session is all about. But then when it comes to use of technology, that too in a bank audit, again I will also tend to skew more towards using Excel to analyze a data dump, to come up with the samples. So that is how I will also go into, because that is how the system, the topic will make more relatable to this time of things, like rather the bank audit season. Okay. Otherwise, if we can do one complete session on technology as such, on ChatGPT, on the whole things that are going to happen, it will be a very good thing, and definitely we can bring some value to the table. With this little intro, let us go into how are we approaching the bank audit. Okay. Of course, bank audit is something where the emotion curve is like, it's like a normal distribution. It goes to the peak. So when the bank audit is around 2 weeks, so we will think of doing a lot of things. But then when the bank audit season actually arrives, what happens is the delay of the data to be submitted by the banker is the first hurdle that we have to cross. Okay. And then we have very little time to play around. So by that time, the data is, the time is gone. Okay. Of course, all limitations are there, and that is how the life is made up of. With all of this, let us just go into okay, by the time it connects, I just want to tell a story. Okay. How is artificial intelligence, or how is this problem solving or generative AI working behind the screens? Is it intelligent or is it dumb? Whether AI is intelligent or is it dumb? Just give your answer, no problem. Okay. Let us say there is an equation to be solved. Okay. 4x plus 5y is equal to something, and some 8x plus 16, 8x minus 16y is equal to something. So there are two equations to be solved. Okay. How do we solve this? By cross multiplying. Okay. And then we will solve. So there is an approach to solve this problem. Now let us say I am solving this problem by trial and error, by giving some random values to x and y. Okay. So I start with, let x is equal to 3, let y is equal to 4. Y 3 and 4, some random start. Okay. I check if the two equations solve or not, resolve or not. They are not resolving. It is coming there, why not here? Okay. So instead of solving it logically, what I am doing is I am throwing some random numbers for x and y. Okay. So I take 3 and I take 4. The problem is not solved. Okay. Then what I did is I have thrown some other number. Instead of 3 and 4, I am taking 3 and 5 this time. The problem is not solved. The problem is not solved, but I am closer to the solution. Okay. Then what is the learning? If y is increasing, I am closer to the problem. And let us say I have a very big machine and I try thousands of samples per second, and ultimately I find the solution. What is this approach? Intelligent approach or dumb approach? Huh? Yeah, trial and error. Okay. Is it a good approach or a dumb approach? See, we used to solve it logically. Okay. The quadratic equation we used to solve logically. Now the system, because there is a huge increment in the computing capacities of the clouds today, what the system is doing is It is doing a trial and error, but at a rapid pace. And because it is doing at a very huge, rapid pace, it is able to solve the problem. Okay. Now you call it as an intelligent, but this is exactly the AI. In a way, the goal seek that we do in Excel, if we do it very rapidly, what happens is the system will able to solve the problem. Okay. Now we call machine learning. Can the machine learn any language of an animal? Let us say the language of a pet, language of our pet, our dog at home. Can the system learn that language? Yes or no? It can. It can. How it will? Simple. Same thing is happening. So I'm just doing something what I can meanwhile. You connect to your laptop, no problem. Now we are on a very interesting use case. Can the system be trained to understand language of dogs? Yes. Let us say the dog is in a happy mood and it is making some sounds. Okay. The system will record that. We have already labeled it as happy mood. Okay. And the system will average out thousands of samples. The system will average out thousands of samples and compare it with this audio clip and then come to a conclusion that if it is in a happy mood, this is a kind of a sound that it will make. Okay. Now you say that run, you say that come, you say that you are offering a food and then you are chiding it, you are scolding it, you are then shouting at it. If you can relate all the responses of that, okay, and if the data bank is huge, we call this as model training. Okay. So when the model is trained with a lot of labeled data, okay, why I am calling it as a labeled data? Because I am giving the answer upfront. I am giving the answer upfront. I am saying that this is a clip and this is what the dog is trying to say. Because it is happy, this could be an happy mood. That is a label I am giving. Okay. So I am giving the label and the clip. What the system does is, with hundreds and lakhs of records, it will finally arrive at something, and if there is a bark, it will convert it and then convert it into normal English language. How is it able to do? Finally, it is all happening with the brute force of trial and error. Okay. Of course, there are a lot of things called regression, logical regression, and then parameter tuning. So a lot of the technical stuff is there, but finally what it is happening behind the screens is this. So what is a real game changer is the fall in the prices of speed. Okay. Now 1 terabyte pen drive, how is it costing? How much is it costing? Few hundreds. Okay. Earlier it used to be 1 MB. Okay. Now with the rapid downtrend of the prices and with the rapid availability of the computing force, with the RAM and the CPU becoming increasingly large and increasingly affordable, we are now in a position to read lakhs and crores of records and then synthesize it automatically. Okay. So that is what is making things happen. Now if you give a PDF of 100 pages and ask the system to summarize, what it will do is, it will read the most recurring fields and then the associations, okay, like without prejudice to the above. So then it is said that there are one argument and there is another argument, as and when it comes that. Okay. Notwithstanding the above, which means that there is something at the top and something at the bottom is going against that, but then it will anyway override that. Then it will read words, from words it will read phrases, from then it will understand the common recurrences, how many times in how many crores of PDFs this has been repeated. Okay. From there it will understand and then synthesize. So therefore it is now in a position to come to a stage where if you give a show cause notice Ask the system to draft a reply. It will draft a reply which is impossible for any human being to at least do the research on. Because with the speed, it can refer to thousands and thousands of cases. Now, can you give a huge data set to ChatGPT or generative AI? When we say generative AI, because it is taking something and then generating something new out of it, it is called generative AI. At a very high level, I'm not going into the technical nitty-gritties of that. So what is happening is, if you give a huge data set and ask this system to analyze how is the sales trend in this, from which vendor I have sold the max, is there any preference to any vendor, which means that the system will first understand what is vendor, which column relates to a vendor automatically, okay, and then from the vendor, what is the average price a product is sold to all the vendors in that particular period of time, let us say 15-month chunk, 15-day chunk. Out of that, what is the average selling price? And whether any one particular vendor had been given the goods at a substantially lower price when compared to that or not. So what formulas you have to write? Nothing. No VLOOKUP. नहीं एक्सेल फाइल से PPT नहीं है. Clear? So what the system is doing is, system is first analyzing the data, understanding what rows are categorical rows, what rows are with numbers, what rows are quantitative in nature, what rows are attributive in nature, and system will automatically do the composition analysis, system will automatically make the trend analysis, system will automatically predict the anomalies in the data. Okay. So now what happens if this kind of a data analysis is done by the system on its own? Where are we heading to? Okay. So therefore, the times that are going to come, at least when it comes to data and analyzing the data and then generating the anomalies out of that, 90% of this is going to get automated very, very rapidly. I mean, less than 5 years of time. Anyway, from the building block, how is it happening? There are certain principles. So I'm going into certain principles behind analyzing the data, which will be very important for you to analyze the data. Okay. When you are given a huge data, let us say advanced jetting of your bank, your branch, can you take a sample out of that? Are you allowed to take a sample? Please respond. Yes. Is there any precondition? What the auditing standard says, can you take a sample out of a data? Yes, but there is a precondition. The data should be of a homogeneous risk quality. Okay. Which means that if there are certain apples and certain bananas, you cannot take a sample out of it. Because the risk profile of the data points is not the same. Okay. So therefore, first of all, what we have to see is, we have to reduce or we have to increase the homogeneity of the risk. Means all the data points are of same characteristic. Okay. Then what is that characteristic? Who defines that characteristic? Let us say advances data is there. What are the characteristics of that? Which scheme it belongs to? Which sector it was given to? Whether secured or unsecured? Okay. What is a type of loan? Whether term loan or working capital loan? So what we call them as attributes. Okay. So they are all attributes to the data. Clear? And each attribute may carry a different kind of a risk. Like for example, loan against KYC or FD will carry higher risk or lower risk? Will carry very lower risk. Term loan, will it carry more risk, or working capital, will it carry more risk? Working capital. Okay. Because the amount of the security, the primary security that will be there against the term loan and the working capital are a bit different. Okay. So therefore, whenever you see a very big data chunk like this, what is the first step that we have to do? We have to study the profile of the data. We have to read the profile of the data. From the point of what? From the point of homogeneity. Homogeneity of a standpoint of your choice. Like for example, newly opened accounts, newly sanctioned accounts, and then accounts that were sanctioned some 3 or 4 years back, and the accounts that are sanctioned some 10 or to 15 years back. Will they carry the same profile? Are they relevant in the same way? No. The accounts that are newly sanctioned are more important for credit appraisal, and then sanctioning process, and then for documentation. Whereas accounts that were given 2 or 3 years old are important for the conduct, debit credit summation. Whereas accounts that were sanctioned some 10 to 15 years back, they are more important for seeing whether the repayment is commensurate or not, etc. Clear? Yes or no? So therefore, before we start using technology, we must first have a first-hand impression on the profile of the data. Okay. So whenever we sample, the first and the basic condition is we must homogenize the data. How do we homogenize? Any techniques? By the way, what is the standard on sampling? What's that, sir? Yeah, in order that it is a representative of the entire population, first of all, the population should be of certain similarity. Okay. So when the population is dissimilar, diverse, heterogeneous, so what we have to do is we have to break it down. How do we break it down? Horizontally or vertically? Or both? Both. So when you divide the data horizontally, we call it as classification. Like for example, there are 1 lakh advances, or at least 6,000 advances, typical branch size, 5,000 to 6,000 advances. When you make advances of priority sector into one bucket, non-priority sector into one bucket, what are we doing? Horizontal split or vertical split? It's a horizontal split. Okay. So we are cutting the width of the data. We are cutting the width of the data, not the height of the data or the altitude of the data. Okay. So let us say certain are term loans, certain are working capital. Again a classification. Okay. So when we classify the data will become smaller parts, smaller chunks. So we call it as classes. Okay. Now within each class, let us say term loans, priority sector. So there is out of 6,000 accounts, we have taken all term loans, 600. All term loans to corporates, 300. All term loans to corporates under non-priority sector, 250. Now whether this 250 is homogeneous or not? Yes. So attributively, the characteristics that the data had got are all same. Are all same. Yes or no? Yes. Even then there is one more cut that is possible, that is vertical cut. So the vertical cut we call it as stratification. We call it as stratification. So when you stratify things, we are doing it on a quantitative basis, not on a qualitative basis. Classification is a qualitative cut and stratification is a quantitative cut. When you cut it quantitatively, like for example, 1 lakh to 1 crore in one bucket, 1 crore to 5 crore in one bucket, above 5 crore in one bucket. So this cut is called what? Stratification. Which is an horizontal cut or vertical cut? It's a vertical cut. So which is first? Vertical cut first or horizontal cut first? Horizontal cut first. Okay. By the way, there is one more slight difference which is also very, very important when you approach any data. What is the difference between classification and categorization? Or will they mean the same? Somehow this Excel had not worked. I am into a little bit of a theory which is also good in fact. So what is classification and what is categorization? Please answer. It need not be final and correct. Whatever comes to your mind. Let us say we are dividing the whole population into boys and girls. Categorization or classification? Classification. Then what it is? Then what is the real difference, or what is the real, when to use what, or what is the purpose of what? So classification is a mutually exclusive cut of the data, which means that one data point cannot go to two classes. One subject can either be a boy or a girl. Specific in the sense exclusive. It could either form this or this. It could either be left or right. It could be either a term loan or it could be a working capital. So that is what is a classification. Okay. Yeah. Categorization is identifying an attribute over the data. Like for example, when someone says, are you a boy and a girl, we cannot answer it as both. Obviously. So when someone says, are you a chartered accountant or a cost accountant, there is a possibility that we may say both. Yes or no? So when you approach a data and ask it as, is it a priority sector or is it a term loan? It could be both. Because they are what? They are categories. They are categories. So classes are like buckets. So you should either put one subject into any one of these buckets. That is what classification. Whereas categorization is like, we are not putting the data into a bucket. We are going to the data and then labeling it. Okay. So this is a chartered accountant. So we are bringing the sticker chartered accountant and fixing it to the data, attribute to the data. Okay. So we are calling it as term loan, one attribute. And we are also giving priority sector, another attribute. To a corporate and to a non-corporate, corporate, another attribute. So what are we doing? Categorizing or classifying? Categorizing. So out of these two, which first? What first? Categorization or classification? Classification is a mutually exclusive cut. So whenever you wish to cut it mutually exclusively, possible, cut it. If it is not possible, then categorize. Okay. Within each of the subsets, if there is a huge diversity between the min and the max, okay, like the minimum value of a transaction is 1000 and the maximum value is 20 crore, out of that data are you supposed to take a sample? Are you permitted to take a sample? No. There is homogeneity, the missing of homogeneity. Then you have to what? Stratify. So this is what we call in data science as slicing and dicing of the data. So divide the data either horizontally or vertically to such an extent that you get a population which is having certain definitive characteristic. Okay. So within that population, every subject is equal. Equal in a sense, homogeneous. And they stand to a test of a normal probability. Means out of that you can pick up anything. Out of that you can pick up anything. So there the question of sampling comes into play. So it is not a blind application of pinky ponky rule to the data and then saying that some 5 at random or every 5th occurrence, convenient sampling, we call it as convenient sampling. So every 5th occurrence I have picked up. So can you pick up every 5th occurrence in a bank audit? So will it meet the standards? No. Okay. So when we do the same thing in Excel or Power Query or some other proprietary analytical tools or any other softwares that were built, so this is what is happening behind the screens. Maybe by purchasing of a software, what is happening behind the screens we need not worry about, and then the system is doing it, cooking it and then serving the ready-made meal for us. It's good. But it is also equally good to know the concepts behind, which will give us an insight as to how to look at the data. Okay. In fact, technology plays well in the hands of seniors because they have the experience, they have the strategy with them. So only thing is, the knowledge of these words may prevent them, their experience coming into the play. But if there is a combination of one senior guiding and then one person doing it hands-on, it's a deadly combination. So they can crack any data. They can find out lot of things even without going to the bank. Even without visiting, they will be able to get lot of insights into the data. Okay. So we discussed about homogeneity of data, and further there are 3 techniques. What are those? Can you just a quick recap? Classify, categorize, and then stratify. Now within that, everything had an equal chance to be picked up. So there we apply the concept called randomization. Okay. So how do we do the randomization? Excel, there is a command, ready-made command. Okay. Otherwise, olden days, statisticians, they have random tables. Okay. So there used to be books called random table numbers. So from that, they will take one number to another number, so that to say that I am not personally inclined to pick up or not pick up any data point. Okay. So if you go to Excel, there is a randomization function, and we can use the randomization, and then we can pick up as per the formula anything that is there. So let us build on from step 1. So this is a data dump. So if someone gives us a data, what is the first thing that we have to read? Column names and then the total size. So some date, account number, limit, interest rate, theoretical balance, outstanding, irregularity, sanction, EMI. Then there are certain things, EMI paid, overdue. So there are about almost 50 columns. 36 columns are there. And what is the width of the data? Volume of the data? It's a theoretical data set, not a real one. So some 1200 line items are there. Okay. I'll do one thing. I'll take some blank sheet and then start it from step 1. Yeah, I'll increase it. Is it okay? Yeah. Now there are certain advances A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. I have to pick up one out of them. How many are there? 8. So let us say we have already classified, stratified or categorized this. So how do we stratify? That also I'll go into it. How do we stratify using Excel? That also I'll just go and demonstrate. So I'll use Excel first. Now there are 10 samples. Now I have to pick up 20% of the data at random. How can I do that? So this is my total data. Because it is 10, I am taking a higher number, 20%. So I want to pick up 20% of this data as a selection for my sample, and then I want to go deep into this. And another thing is, will one sample work for all? Like advances are there. Can you take one sample? The answer is no. So for every aspect we must have a sample. Like for example, credit monitoring, for that we must have a sample. Sanctioning, for that we must have a sample. Documentation, for that we must have a sample. So this is called audit objective. So if there is a change in the audit objective, the style of sampling will also or shall also have to change. For every objective with which we are approaching the data, from the same data pool, we may have to take lot of data. Like for example, old accounts are there. You have picked up as sample and you are testing whether documentation is done or not. Will it fetch any result? No. Because it was a very, very old account, maybe the documentation test might have been done so many times by different auditors. So documentation is more relevant for newly opened accounts. Okay. Regularization, reconstruction or refacement, that is more relevant for those accounts which were rescheduled during the year or which are all NPS during the last 5 years. So therefore, the category of the data that we are approaching will change from the audit objective. If you are testing quick mortality, the question is different. If you are checking whether any related party risk is there, then it is different. Whether it is any huge exposure to a single entities or a limited entities, then the data is changed. Okay. Anyway, I am not going into the qualitative aspects of that. Just I am making a point that we must first analyze the quality, then only we must come with the quantitative aspect of that. Anyway, coming to this, now there are A to J, certain numbers are there. I want to generate certain random numbers. There is a function in Excel called RAND, R-A-N-D, with open and closed brackets, no arguments to be passed. Okay, and it will generate a random number between, anyone please, 0 to 1. So it will always generate a number between 0 to 1, and every time you refresh the screen, it will generate another number. I tried universal password also. Huh? Okay. So every time I refresh this, it will generate another number. That is a whole concept. Okay. Now how do we use this practically? How do we use this? Now I will demonstrate. So I am copying the same formula against all of these 10 items. Why 10? Because I am able to see only 10 at a time on a screen. Okay. Now what? There are certain random numbers. Then how do I select my sample? Then I am saying that because it will give me the data between 0 to 1 anyway. Okay. So now I am writing a formula like if this number is between 0.2 to 0.4 or 0.4 to 0.6, 0.6 to 0. You can take any range of 20%. Okay. I am taking less than 0.2 or greater than 0.8. Greater than 0.8 is 20%, right? So I am taking if this is greater than 0.8, means if the number is above 0.8 to 1, if it falls in the 20% category, then I am using the word selected. Otherwise I am using the word not selected. Now you see, this is not selected, this is not selected. I am copying the same formula. Now how many are selected? 2. Because the formula goes like this: if the random number so generated by Excel is greater than 0.8, then select, otherwise don't select. How many will be there? Above 0.8, 20% of the slot will be there. So every time I refresh, the system will fetch . So you can stop somewhere, take a screenshot, document it, say that I have generated my random sample like this. Okay? Clear or not clear? Can we use this technique? Yes. But before we use the technique, as I said, qualitative analysis, homogeneity, all of those things has to be taken care. Qualitative aspects has to be taken care. Now is it a good way or a very crude or a rudimentary way to generate the sample? If it is not good way, then let us build on. Next example. Okay. Let us say every one of these advance has got certain value. By the way, let me introduce another function called rand between. So there is another function called rand between, where you can give the range. What random generates is always between 0 to 1. Now you are bored to look at this 0.888 and on decimals and all, you are not interested. Okay. So you can generate rand between, where the system will generate a random number at every iteration between the ranges of the top range and the bottom range. Like I am saying between 1 to 1 crore. because this is not my system, and difference between Mac and yeah. Now A to Z have got certain numerical attribute to this. Let us say this is sanction limit. Now this is pure random. Am I giving any importance to A over B? No. I am not giving any importance between A and B. Okay. Now how can I give a weighted random? Now instead of a simple random, I want to go to weighted random. So how can I do it as a weighted random? Now what I am doing is, I am calculating the percentage of each item. Now A divided by sum of all, or let us say I keep sum here. So the sum of all items is 51,42,480. Now what I am doing is, for every number I am first calculating its percentage. We call it as part to whole. So what is the percentage of this on the whole? Now for easy understanding, I am just putting it to 2 decimals. Now A occupies 14% of the size, B occupies only 2% of the size, C occupies 10% of the size. So therefore each number had got a different magnitude. Yes or no? Each advance has got a different magnitude. Now I want to give certain importance, I want to give certain weightage to its size as well. Then what to do? I can do one thing. There is a random number, right? So this is a random number generated by the system. So this is random, this is weightage. So now I am multiplying those two. So what is this? Weighted random. Now I am giving the same formula, like if G4 so let me go step by step and then repeat or say what it is. Now A got certain values, every advance has got certain sanction limit, okay? This is a sanction limit. Now instead of going by brute randomness or sheer randomness, I want to give certain weightage to each of the data. So what weightage you can take? You can take sanction letter, sanction amount as a weightage, outstanding amount as a weightage, irregularity as a weightage, number of days since it was sanctioned as a weightage, number of days since it was regularized as a weightage. Weightage depends on your choice. I am taking sanctioned amount as a weightage. So A, which is 7,42,000, is carrying a weightage of what? 14%. Okay. So now I am generating Excel random numbers. Excel is generating certain random numbers. Instead of applying the random number as it is, I am multiplying the randomness with the weightage. Now what I am with? Weighted random. Now I am applying my formula on that. Wherever my weighted random is greater than certain percentage, select that, otherwise don't select. So if I refresh, the data points are different. So now I am selecting H and I. So are they purely random? No. Are they purely based on weight, like select top 1 and top 2? No. So it's a mixture of both. How much of weightage you have to give? That depends on your choice. Okay. So now we discussed what? Random. Now we discussed weighted random. Now what? So what are the other techniques of sampling in our auditing standards? Stratified weighted random. Possible? Stratified weighted random or Pareto based randomness. Okay. Now, how many items are selected? 2. Okay. What is the value of them? Now, if it is selected, if this is equal to selected, then I am getting the value here, otherwise 0. Okay. Now, how much of data is covered? Some 9,88,000 is covered. What is 9,88,000? %. And what is the count of that? I'm a little confused with the keyboard. Now what? I have taken how much of a sample? How many items are selected? 4, which means 40% of the data. And how much of value is covered? 65% of the value is covered. So let us go step by step in a minute. I have taken sanction limit as my weightage. And on the weightage, I applied random function. I multiplied both, so it became weighted random. On the weighted random, I have put a threshold, like wherever it is greater than 0.08. You can see the formula here. If the formula is not visible, let me show it like this. If Z12 is greater than 0.08, select, otherwise don't select. So that becomes my criteria. What criteria you have to use, that is your choice. So when you apply the criteria, certain items are selected. But this selection is taking a sample of 40% in number, 65% in value. Are you okay? So let us say you want to reduce the quantity further. There is no such a luxury of time for you. So you want to reduce the sample size. So you got a limit, like I should cover not more than 30%. I should cover not more than 30%. And on the value, I should cover not less than 65%. So let us say that is your audit objective. What could be your audit objective? Your choice, your wish, but you should document that. Okay. So luckily for us, so we are going and then taking a sample, putting it in the LFR. So what is the criteria of the sample? Why only this sample? What is the methodology you adapted? What is your approach? How you homogenized this risk? I don't know how many of us are documenting it, but we have to document. Anytime there is any sort of a review on that, we have to have the backup. Anyway, it is all possible with technology. What I mean to say is it is all possible with technology. In fact, I am not demonstrating the softwares that, in fact, maybe it is permitted or not permitted, so I am not going into that. I am just using Excel and then doing it with the basic steps. So we have certain features where you can generate all of this at a click of button. You need not even think of that. So say to generate, it will generate. Okay. Anyway, it is also good to see things in action from step by step. Now, on the randomness, I have generated a sample which is taking 4, which is 40% of the data, and 65%. Happy, not happy? We should not be happy, at least for 4-3 rounds. So let me generate another one. So how to generate another sample? The function in Excel is F9. So F9 will refresh the page and regenerate the sample. So F9 is to recalculate. That is a function in Excel. So I am hitting F9 again. Now what? 10% in size, 16% in value. Okay, not okay? Obviously not okay. 2036, 1019, 4065, 2029, 4060. I think it cannot go any better than this. Yeah. 30% of size, 43% of volume. Okay? Okay or not okay? No. Are you going by top 1, 2, 3? No. I am not going by top 1, 2, 3. If I go by top 1, 2, 3, then there is a problem. Of course, the data is too small. The data is 10. Imagine there are 10,000. Then it makes more sense. But then if I show it like 10,000, I cannot scroll up and down, and we will get lost in between this scrolling. So I'm taking a very toy example for better demonstration. Now you can imagine on a real world example. Okay, I'll leave this Excel file also here so that the formula will also be there, the model will also be there. So this is how we can do that. So this we call it as Pareto analysis. What is Pareto analysis? Cover at least 20% of the, cover at least 80% of the value and don't cover more than 20% in terms of quantity. Okay. Of course, it may not be possible theoretically, because if the data is not having two bigger lumps, if it is data is totally evened out, then it is not possible. So therefore, it is not that the Pareto analysis is possible on that all the time. If there are two big numbers and two small numbers, then Pareto will work. If every number is equal, then with every one more selection, you will go only linearly, then Pareto will not work. So Pareto will work only when there are huge distortions in the data. Okay. And you cannot apply this on the whole advances also, very, very dangerous. Then you will end up taking one housing loan and then one term loan. It's like without any audit without brains, which is very dangerous. So now we have seen what? The Pareto based. So we have seen simple, we have seen random, we have seen weighted random, now we have seen Pareto wise data analytic. Okay, now what? What is the next one? Stratification. So how do we stratify the data? How do we stratify the data? Any idea? I'm sure that a lot of you people are already doing it, at least younger people. So how do we convert this data into stratas? Stratas means buckets. Yes, please. Yeah, you were saying something. Yeah. Yeah, we can do that, but that is too lengthy. So what he is suggesting is like A is what? 7,42,000. Okay. Because it is 7,42,000, because it is 7,42,000, it falls in which strata? Yeah. Now what we can do in stratification is, what is the minimum of this? So what is the minimum of this min of this data? 4,735. What is the max of that? What is it? 9,88,000. Okay. What is the difference between min and max? This we call it as range. What is range? Min minus, sorry, max minus min. And how many buckets you want for stratification? How many buckets? Number of stratas. Typically we take 10 buckets, but here the total data itself is 10. So if you take 10 buckets, it don't make any meaning. So let us take 3 buckets. Okay? So I am making it as 3 buckets. So what is the range of each bucket? Bucket range is this minus this. Sorry. This divided by. Okay. Now what? So this is the size of the strata. Now we are saying that the min and the max. The min and the max. Now if it falls between 4735 to 327938, then it will fall in first strata. Okay. Of course, we need not do all of this. I will give a better alternate also in Excel. We can use pivot table here. Okay. So I'll go use that. Now what? So I'm writing a formula like if this is less than 327938, I'm adding it. So if that is less than, then it is 1. Otherwise, if it is less than, then 2. Otherwise 3. Oh, I'm sorry. So I have written a formula stating that if it is between 47352 32798, then it will fall under first bucket. Otherwise, if it is 2 times the range and the min, then it will fall under second bucket. Otherwise, it will fall under so this is third bucket, this is first bucket, this is second bucket, this is first bucket, third bucket, second bucket, third bucket, first bucket. Okay. Now what are we doing? We are making the data into stratas. Now if you want a stratified random sample, what to do? For each strata, make a separate, bring one strata at one place, then apply the same random sampling again. Okay. So therefore, whatever we have thought of doing is very much possible by using a proper tools and techniques. Okay. Now, before we go into that, so how are we approaching the data? How are we approaching? That is very, very important. Quantitative analysis is first, then only the quantitative implication of that. Okay. So any questions or any insights, any suggestions from your side on this? So far what we have seen? Yeah. So now I think today that problem is not there much as it used to be in the past. At least 3-4 years back they used to give text files. Okay. Now almost all the banks have moved to Excel, I think. Okay. Even then, if it is not possible, or if they are giving it in a text file, then we can convert text into columns. Okay. So you can use Excel and then use text to columns, or you can use Power Query. Okay. You can use Power Query, where Excel has an inbuilt capability. Power Query is an extension of Excel. So, but then here in this laptop, I don't know whether it is installed and then to demonstrate it, or you can also search it on YouTube. Lot of thousands of videos are there in CA community. CA community in a sense, it is not a WhatsApp, YouTube channel. I'm saying generally in the community. So lots of it are there where you can convert. Even if you give a PDF, now Excel will convert that PDF into a proper table. Okay. So the capabilities of Excel have increased rapidly. So it can read even a text file, not even a text file, it can even read an image. The OCR capabilities are also there. Now even in an image it can read and then convert it into text, but of course there could be certain errors if the text, if that image is too distorted. Okay. Otherwise it is possible. Of course, what you have remarked is perfectly yes, all of this is possible only if the data is there. So some banks, they give one node, one server or one system where there is no Excel also. So there is some openoffice.org or something like that. So where all of these functions may work and may not work. These are practical limitations still. Yeah, any other insights before I? So the pace at which it is going, is it okay, or it is too fast or too slow, or? Okay. Yeah. Just give me a moment, please. I'll take a few minutes of time to demonstrate something, but let me give a proper disclaimer. This is one of the softwares which I am going to present. But then, as per institutes, this one, can I present it or not? I am not very sure. Therefore, I have completely masked it, and then you can remove that also. I mean, you can off video also, if okay. If that is going to happen, then there could be no branch audit as well. As of now, the branch audit, the volume of the bank audits have significantly fallen when compared to what it was 5 years back. Okay. So therefore, technology is there. The only thing permanent in the world is change. The most common quote that we get to hear in every technology seminar. So it is really true. How quickly we embrace the change is how quickly we are ahead of the curve. And I wish you all the very best, and a very happy season of bank audit. Good travel and then good work exposure. Thanks a lot from the bottom of the heart to Ahmedabad. I think this is my first time coming to Ahmedabad on a seminar. With all the technological glitches and the pace at which I have gone, I'm not sure whether I have made value for the time that you have invested. Still, I made my effort. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that knowledgeable deliberation and your humble gesture. So we again thank you for accepting our invitation to deliberate on the topic of use of technology, information technology in the bank audits. So thank you so much, sir. We would like to welcome you again on the Ahmedabad branch platform once again on another topic of information technology or bank branch audit the next year. So thank you so much once again. A big round of applause for S. Prasad, sir, from Hyderabad. And there's a small request that for the with respect to lunch, for Jain preferring Jain food, you have to go on the second floor in the canteen, and for others it is on the ground floor.